beautiful people, and welcome back to Wine Chat. My name is Emma and I'm a certified sommelier with a mission to spread wine knowledge and help you drink better. Now today we are on our third and final segment of my rosé series, and today we're going to cover 5 of my favorite rosés on the market. Now these 5 rosés that I have chosen do all come from Provence, very typical, but I have tried rosés from all over the world, from everywhere from New Zealand to Australia, Italian, Spanish, even Austrian or Hungarian rosés. But these are 5 that have really stuck with me as just incredible examples of what rosé really can be. And they're wines that when I go to a restaurant, I look to see if they have them on the wine list. So I thought I would share them with you today. The first one on my list is Domaine Haute. This is probably the most commercial of all my choices today, as you can find some of the cuvées from Domaine Haute in a few kind of upmarket supermarkets like Waitrose. But the wines are delicious all the same. So Domaine Haute wines come in a bottle called a skittle, which is kind of the tall bottle with a little bit of curves on it, and it's very typical of a Provençal style wines. Domaine Haute was founded in 1912 by Marcel Haute, who was an agricultural engineer coming from Alsace, but he always had a dream of owning a wine estate by the Mediterranean Sea. And so he founded 3 different estates in the Provence and one in the Bandol appellation, which is a small appellation within the larger Provence appellation. And Domaine Haute has been farmed organically from the very beginning and has always used natural fertilizers. Everything is done by hand as well. Now my favorite rosé from Domaine Haute is the Clos Miral, which comes from a plot of 50 hectares of ancient terrain that is well known for its mix of silica, slay and schist soils and the estate's seafront location. Made with the Saunier method. If you remember back to video 1, it's the bleeding of the wine, and it's aged in oak casks actually for 6 to 8 months. And it produces a very gentle and elegant wine with a wonderful undercurrent of complexity. Clos Miral wine is predominantly Grenache, which gives it a little bit more kind of full body, a little bit more texture. And then we have 20% Cinsault, which brings a lush softness, and some Syrah as well, which brings a fruit forwardness and a lovely roundness to the wine. Now this is what you should really be expecting when you're looking for an easygoing summertime rosé with a bit of complexity to it. This is a wine I could drink all day, any time of the year, with or without food. It is just amazing. Wine number 2 is Clos Sainte-Magdeleine. Now this comes from another tiny appellation on a fishing village right on the seafront of Provence called Cassis. In the whole area of Cassis, there are only 14 producers who work with a total of 180 hectares. And Clos Sainte-Magdeleine itself covers just a tiny 20 hectares and has been in the Sac family since 1922. Francois Sac is now in control of all the viticulture and vinification and works with his son Jonathan, who is actually the president of the AOC Cassis. So Clos Sainte-Magdeleine has worked with sustainable farming for years, but is now converted to organic viticulture, using around 40% Grenache, 40% Cinsault, and 20% Mourvedre, with all vinification done in stainless steel. The wine is quite delicate, it's a really bright red currant, crisp cherries, and a little bit of a savory palate as well. This is a wine that is great paired with seafood. It comes from a fishing village, and pairing wine with food that comes from where the grapes are grown is kind of the oldest trick in the book. But this with seafood is just delightful and matches lots of Provençal salads or even vegetables that are hard to match like artichokes. And as with all rosés, it is just divine to drink on its own. Wine number 3, Domaine Tempier. Now, this is the first of my 2 choices of rosés coming from Bandol, which, as I mentioned before, is a tiny appellation within the larger appellation of Provence. Now, Bandol wines must legally be made from mostly the Mourvedre grape, which produces wines that are a little bit firmer, have a bit more structure, and can age really well. Now, Domaine Tempier has always worked as naturally as possible, just because that's how they believe it should be done. And I believe, I've read, but I don't know if it's 100% true, they are in the process of going through some sort of certifications just so that they have a label that they can stick onto their bottles. So keep an eye out for that. Now, this domain has been around for hundreds of years, and it was already existing during the reign of King Louis XV. The modern day Domaine Tempier really started when Lucien Peyrade, the husband of Lucie Tempier, bottled his first wine in October 1943, which just happened to be a rosé. Lucien Peyrade went on to become kind of the spiritual father of Bandol, spending around the next 37 years pushing the objective of the aging of Bandol wine, wanting it to be recognized such as other great France regions such as Bordeaux, Burgundy, Châteauneuf-du-Pape or Hermitage. The Domaine Tempier Rosé is made with maceration process with a direct pressing. It's fragrant, rich, yet delicate, and has a freshness to it, makes it super drinkable when it's in its youth, and it is really suited for longer aging too. The longer it's aged, it's going to take on more complex flavors of kind of candied citrus and rose petals. It's really delicious. Wine number 4. Move on to Chateau Piedmont. So this is the second of my 2 wines coming from Bandol. And this is a really unique wine. It has a really unique microclimate due to its altitude, which is one of the highest in Bandol. And it's sitting at about 300 meters above the sea level. The vineyards of Chateau Piedmont are situated in a natural amphitheater, which look out over the Mediterranean Sea. Now, all these factors come together and just allow the grapes to get super, super ripe. And with the altitude and the amphitheater, the vines are protected from any strong winds that might be coming in or any fog that might roll in the mornings. Vineyards are all organic as well, and all vineyard tasks are carried out by hand. So you know there's a lot of care going on here. The wine is made of up to 70% Mourvedre, which is being produced with the Saunier method, and it just brings an elegant freshness to the wine. Cinsault makes up the other 30% of the blend, but this is produced with the maturation direct pressing method, which brings a lot more body, fruit aromas to the wine. After fermentation, it's aged in a stainless steel tank for 6 months, and the end result is a wine that is fruit forward with red berries, sweet licorice spices, citrus peel, and a solidity on the long finish. A very serious wine with a serious structure to it. And this allows it to pair well with stronger fish dishes, spicy food, white meat, even some like Spanish Iberico porcam. That would be an outstanding pairing for this. There's another wine that is really delightful to drink in its youth when it's young and fresh, but if you age it, you'll really be rewarded with the complexity of time that gives to the wine. And last but not least, we come to my final wine. Wine number 5 is Chateau Simone. Now this is coming from another very small appellation within the larger appellation of Provence called Palette. Now what is so special about Chateau Simone is that it covers 17 of the total 22.5 hectares of Palette. So pretty much most of the wine you see around from Palette is Chateau Simone. Wines from Palette also have the broadest spectrum of grape varieties in any French region. So for Palette Blanc, for example, there are 16 different varieties that are allowed, and for Rosé from Palette, there's a total of 15 different red grapes, plus any of the 16 different white grapes, as long as they only make up 15% of the blend. So there is like so many grapes that could go into this wine. It's really quite cool. Now, the main property of Chateau Simone dates back to the 16th century and has been owned by the Rougier family for the last 7 generations. The average age of the vine at Chateau Simone is 50 years plus, giving a lower yield but a super complex grape. The wine is produced with about 45% Grenache, 30% Mourvedre, and 5% Cinsault, a touch of Syrah, and the rest is all made up by local varieties. Now, 1/3 of the juice is done with Saunier and 2/3 with maturation and direct pressing. The 2 types of juice are fermented separately, they're aged separately, and it's only when they come to put the final blend together that the 2 wines are married, and you end up with the final wine of what you get in the bottle. Now, the end wine with Chateau Simone, you look at it and you'll think, is this a red wine? Because it really looks closer to like a lighter style red wine than a rosé. But it's just a very unique style of rosé. Now, I would recommend letting it age for a few years. This is not a rosé that you really drink straight off the press. You can if you want, but it's really going to benefit from maybe 2 to 3 years age before you should even think about opening it. And it's a fairly full-bodied wine with hints of wild herbs, delicate raspberries, has a vibrant acidity to it, orange peel and wild strawberries. It's an exceptionally complex rosé. It's going to age really, really well. That is if you don't drink it all first. And it pairs super well with white meat, poultry, fresh fish, and all Provençal style dishes. This is the ultimate food-friendly rosé. Now, if anyone ever tries to question you, the rosé is not a serious wine. Give them one of the rosés from on my list, especially Chateau Simone. That is like the most serious rosé you're going to get, and I guarantee it's going to change their mind. Well, that is all from me today. I hope I have made you thirsty and given you some inspiration on a rosé to drink this summer. If you have any comments or questions on rosé wine, please leave a comment below, and thank you so much for watching. And remember, drink better, be better.